Agree with that?
Not at all, although
Okay.
I'm not being cavalier in dismissing that. That's reiterated every day, from kindergarten. So it would be a wonder if we didn't all automatically credit that. The truth is that you're confined with people your own age. You learn to have contempt for people younger than yourself, and you learn to have a kind of awe or be intimidated by people older than yourself. You're also further segregated by some bogus reading score that's supposed to enhance your intellectual development. The disconnection schooling makes, the divisions among us, were an invention of the nations of North Germany. There wasn't a Germany until 1871. There were the Germanies. There were almost 200 of them. And they had followed this very rigid class-based pattern, just as Britain had, except I think the Germans were a little more exacting, but I may be wrong there. In any case, the Germans gave us the first schooling in the Western world that was systematic, that was required by law, or the police would come and get you. And out of northern Germany, which has no natural resources at all, and really is almost landlocked, what we got was great prosperity. It came from converting most of the population into, this is a German translation into English, human resources. So instead of being sovereign spirits with free will and living in the land of the free and the home of the brave, you're a human resource to be spent by your betters. And oddly enough, in a manufacturing or a militaristic economy, of course that works, but it doesn't work for human beings. I mean, it works for the health of the state and whoever is in possession of the state apparatus at the time. Well, Prussian Germans in particular, were imitated all over the world. From Japan, a delegation came, went back to Japan, and translated the Prussian Constitution into Japanese. That was 1868. From the United States came Horace Mann, and in every library in California, and I mean in every library, you will find, ask the librarian, you want to read Horace Mann's 7th letter to the Boston School Committee, fresh back from Prussia, or at least he says so, fresh back from Prussia. He says, we must have Prussian schooling here. And about 8 years later, they got it in Massachusetts, spread instantly to New York and to Washington, D.C. And then what should really cause us to think, no other part of the United States for 15 years jumped aboard. And the key to unlocking that mystery of why they eventually did was Washington, D.C., was one of the 3 original signers to this, and they sent out the money men with the bags and the bribes, and they laid those around, and yet the last American state didn't fall in line until 1918, 68 years after the first one did.
Which was the last American state that fell in line?
Well, Mississippi, but right before Mississippi, there were about 5 more that fell during the First World War, when genuinely boxcars of money were available to lay around. And then, of course, you could employ the police power of the state much more effectively in wartime than you can in peacetime. So what we had was a coup of a sort. And the coup installed not education, but Prussian schooling, which is test-driven. It rigidly divides people from one another. It dries up the experience base that any kid needs to actually develop. The experience is reduced to low-level abstractions out of committee-selected textbooks. So, we could take this, I don't mean you and I, but all of us, we could take this as a moral matter, we could take it as a historical matter, or we could take it as a pragmatic matter, that the huge advantage that open source education gave the United States over any other part of the world, the huge advantage, is worn out now. It's gone. Other people have copied American/Prussian schooling, and they do it much better than we do it. I'm thinking of China, of India, of Japan, of Malaysia. They do it much better than we do because they don't have any traditions of liberty or freedom or individuality. These are collective societies in their mythology. So they're already starting several laps ahead of us. And of course, they retained their manufacturing base because schooled kids don't have much imagination, but they can be chained to a machine or an office and do things repetitively. They don't know how to do anything else. And they don't associate very well with one another because if you're in 11A, you're not used to associating with the kids in 11B, 11C, 11D, 11E ad infinitum. So divide and conquer is a big, big part of American schooling and also schooling elsewhere. But it's not going to help us in a future in which jobs have rapidly dried up. I speak to business groups as well, and I can guarantee you nobody with any sense thinks that we will ever recover the position we had 20 years ago.
There were a lot of revelationary things I learned in the book. One is you said that after World War II, the boom of the 50s, the biggest corporations are schools.
Oh, my goodness, yes. They're first and foremost an employment project, and they absorb millions of people into the workforce, not just the ones you see behind desks and in offices. How about the guy who drives the truck that brings the chalk to school, the people who make the chalk, or all the rest? It's more than half of the profit of the publishing industry. And I would imagine all these IT materials, that works the same way.
I think what's also interesting is that a lot of the knowledge that's transmitted in the school books is outdated.
It doesn't matter. School's function is to teach habits and attitudes. The factual content is utterly irrelevant as long as the attitudes and the habits are learned. You need, for example, and I'm not quoting my own subconscious, but a big shot at Harvard for whom the honor lecturer at Harvard in education is named Alexander Inglis. The name looks like Inglis, I-N-G-L-I-S. But anyway, Inglis said the first job is to make people obedient reflexively. Now, that's a crucial distinction between obedient and obedient reflexively. The only way you can test whether Kim Greenhouse is reflexively obedient is to give her stupid